You're listening to the Write Project podcast and radio program, a show about writing and modern Newfoundland author culture. This program is produced and recorded at CHMR FM 93.5 FM in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and is aired on other great stations in the province and elsewhere in the country. It can also be heard online at www.chmr.ca. I'm your host, Matthew Ledrew. We are back on with John Haas. This is his second time on the show, but there's a good reason. He's got a new book out. He was one of the authors on Dystopia from the Rock earlier this year. He has a fantasy or a fun fantasy book called The Reluctant Barbarian out, kind of a parody fantasy. But now there is a sequel, if I'm not mistaken, to The Reluctant Barbarian called The Wayward Spider. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's a very loose sequel. It's in the same world, but with a bunch of new characters.
Oh, that's interesting. I really enjoy it when people do that, when it's the same setting, the same world, but different protagonists, different stuff like that. That can make something very interesting.
Yeah, I tried to go for something a little bit different, and it is a planned trilogy. And in the third book, which I don't have a release date for yet, but in the third book, the characters from the first and the second actually come together.
Oh, okay. So you form the Barbarian Avengers, or whatever.
Yeah, there you go, yeah.
The Barbarian Avengers. Yeah, okay. So tell me about the Wayward Spider, because I really enjoyed The Reluctant Barbarian, your description of it, the what I've read of it. It was really good. So tell me about this new story, because I'm very interested. Okay,
excellent. So The Wayward Spider is about, the main character's name is Spider. So,
and he's wayward.
He is. He's at odds with himself. He is. Everything in his world has suddenly finished because his father's passed away, and they were thieves and traitors together, and now all of a sudden, everything in his world is suddenly gone, and he's kind of at ends because his entire future is ahead of him. And his past is behind him, but his present is kind of up for grabs.
That is, you're describing time, John. You're describing time.
Exactly. The same for all of us, right?
Yeah.
So he is looking for what he wants to do in his life, and he's got ideas. He wants to be a thief, and he wants to be the best at what he's going to do, but circumstances keep coming along and pushing him in other directions. So he gets saddled with this magic user that he has to basically babysit because the guy, he's very young, but he's got this innate ability with chaos magic where he can just cast a spell without memorizing it, without thinking about it. He can just do it, but it doesn't always work out right. So he needs somebody to babysit him, and the Magic Order wants him to just be out of the city before he destroys it accidentally.
Oh, I see. All right.
Yeah. That's one of the side things that distracts Spider from what he really wants to do.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So there was a lot of borderline parody, not really parody, but like you handled it very seriously, but like the situations in The Reluctant Barbarian, just even the title, like The Reluctant Barbarian, is kind of lends itself to humor, let's say.
Yeah.
So if this is the same world, is it continuing that tone? Is it a different tone? What's going on?
Yeah, it is. It still has very much that dry sense of humor that hopefully makes you laugh out loud. I've had a couple people say that they have. That's definitely my aim. But at the same time, I want the characters for you to feel that they're real characters, not just, oh, haha, they're the funny character, but that you can actually care about them and care what happens to them. And you know that when they're in danger, it really is danger.
That makes sense.
For them. Yeah.
Yeah, well, for them, absolutely. You don't want it to be dangerous for the reader. That'd be hard to do.
Right.
Like, you could, like, carve out the book and have a knife pop out at page, like, 8 at them or something like that. But it'd be difficult, like...
I'll work on that for one of the future books.
The ebook will be even worse. You'll have to have it, like, download a virus when it gets to that page or something. It'll be horrible. I wonder if we'll ever get that level of interactivity. Like, there's some... This is off topic, but there are some games, usually indie games, because it's a bit of a, gross thing to do, really, but it's always kind of interesting. But there are a few indie games that do a very surface-level hack of your computer when you install them. Like, there was one game that I was playing, and you were in this creepy facility where they were monitoring other people. Like, you were basically in, like, this facility, and they had cameras in every home across, in the time, America, but, say, Canada, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so it was playing random video, like, on this big screen of monitors, but every so often, it would access a random video from your computer and play it. Your video, so it would just now that wasn't. I assume that wasn't being transmitted to the game designers, but it was like just like a green screen, and they would put on a video from your computer, so you'd be watching this feed of the people they're monitoring, and it's meant to creep you out, and then all of a sudden it comes up with you, and it's or your face or your loved one, and you go, wait, what just happened? And it didn't announce that it was going to do that, like there was no permissions or anything like that.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, which is interesting. I wonder if we'll ever get to the point where, like, the ebooks, someone tries that, where there's a bit of code where it's, like, the way, like, Spider meets up with, and you just insert name of reader there, like, however they're logged into their Kindle.
Yeah, I like that. That's an interesting idea. I wonder if we will get there. Probably. If somebody has thought about it, yeah.
It'd be really good for children's books. Do it. Those customizable kids books where it's like, John goes on an adventure, you know? But I would absolutely use it for nefarious purposes. I would be an arse about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Not nefarious as in, like, truly evil, but nefarious as in, like, it wouldn't be the main character. It'd be like... the idiot side character would always be the reader or something.
Yeah, you gotta have fun with it.
Oh yeah, gotta have fun. So you've been blowing up a lot since I was talking to you last. We had nothing to do with it, but I will take credit. Yeah. So you've last time we'd spoken, you'd already been in the Writers of the Future collection from L. Ron Hubbard.
Right.
But you've been doing a lot since. I've been seeing interviews on like TV and media and stuff like that about you. Give us an update. What's been going on?
Yeah, a few of those interviews actually came because of Writers of the Future. I went on one before I went to California, and then they set up another one once I came back with oh my gosh, Black. Oh my God, I'm totally drawing a blank on his name. He has the radio show here. And great show. It was a lot of fun. And of course,
on that great show that was a lot of fun. We'll leave it at that.
Second appearance. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. It's still early here.
No problem.
Yeah. So was doing that. I've had a couple of outside blogs that I've done, and video things that I've done. Also, a lot of these have been for Writers of the Future. They've got a lot of background in getting all this publicity out there for each of the people, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
definitely increased my my what's the word I'm looking for? The amount of people who are actually knowing who I am.
That's good. Your awareness, people's your
Name
profile.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. The Wayward Spider, that actually came out September 30th, so it's still pretty new. So if you've been on Amazon recently, people listening, then and you've been checking out the
Yes.
different authors, you might not have seen it depending on how recently you were there, but it is there now if you want to go check it out. It's reasonably priced on there. It's a good length of a book, so definitely check it out. John Haas, in your experience, in your mind, what's the most unethical practice in the publishing industry right now?
Oh, that's a very good one because we're seeing a lot, specifically here in Ottawa, with cheesing press, where they were not paying their authors, and they were there's reports of harassment and abuse to their authors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really blown up online. It's an interesting story to see, and it's if you weren't in the middle of it, you didn't necessarily see it either. But now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, I should have known more. I should have realized. Anyway, unethical. Yeah.
Not paying authors sounds like pretty unethical. Yeah.
I would say so. I mean, there's lots of presses out there that they're upfront, and it's like, yes, this is unpaid. And I mean, you're upfront about it, that's fine. But if you say
or you're a very small press and we're trying, but it's a risk. You let the author know that there's a risk involved.
Absolutely. And I've had a couple of stories published in anthologies that have said, if this makes money, you'll get royalties.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, good enough.
Yep. Which is fair.
Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. And that is a great place for people who are starting out who maybe don't have a publishing credit yet. So it gives them an opportunity. It gives them a place. They may have the talent, just not the name recognition yet.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. John Haas, what are common traps or pitfalls for aspiring authors? What are mistakes that aspiring authors make in your experience?
Oh, good question. My big one was trying to do something too big too fast. I decided when I first started writing many years ago, I was going to skip this whole nonsense with short stories and go straight to writing a book because that's where the money was.
Yep.
But the short stories is where you actually hone your craft. You figure out what you're doing wrong and what you need to improve, and it's not so heartbreaking when you have to abandon a 20-page story as it is when you abandon an entire book. So now this book that I started out with is sitting in a drawer, and it's got some okay stuff to it, but it's definitely not publishable.
Gotcha. There's also this weird, like a lot of so with the authors that are making some money that I know, there's a divide. There's ones that are making their money from novels, and those ones are doing okay. But there's also a growing contingent of ones that are just writing, like have this catalog of short stories that they're sending out to every venue that's open for short stories. Like if they take reprints, and they just got this massive spreadsheet of like the one that you wrote for us. What was the name of the one that you wrote for Dystopia?
Rude World.
Rude World. I thought so. Yeah, so that one Rude World that you wrote for us, you might have that on a spreadsheet now, and you might be sending it out any time that there's a story call for submissions that fits that genre, especially one that pays. But even if it's not one that pays, just to keep your name out there, keep it on search history, stuff like that. And you're just sending it out as long as they're not asking for exclusive forever rights, so that way, because then you couldn't sell it anymore, just send. And if you keep writing short fiction, then you can get a catalog of stories that you're doing this with and make a little side income.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do that. I've got all my short stories that I send out. I've got some that are as yet unpublished, and then I've got the ones that would be reprints. And I do send them out if it fits something. I'm like, oh hey, how about this one? And in the meantime, I'm working on the books that I work on. And in between books, I'll do a short story or two as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I always have something that pops into my head, and I'm like, oh, I've got to do that one next time I have some time.
Cool. If you could tell your younger writing self any one thing, what would that be?
I would say, get started. Get started, don't waste time, just get to it.
Yeah.
I wasted a lot of time walking around telling people I was a writer, instead of actually doing the writing and just showing.
Oh, you were a lit fiction author. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would go back. I'd smack myself in the back of the head and say, "Look, you can do this, but get started."
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. Get nose to the grindstone. If you want an easy gig where you just kind of go around to parties and say you're a writer, that's not what this is.
No.
Cool. John Haas, what's the best money you ever spent on your craft, on your writing career?
Oh, best money. Oh, that's a good. Mm-hmm. Here in Ottawa, every year there's a conference called CanCon. It's for Canadian content in genre fiction, so fantasy, science fiction, horror, romance, mystery, and we come together, and so for one entire weekend, Friday night to Sunday night, we come and we listen to panels, and we meet published authors who are actually making money doing what we love, and we're learning about it, and we're meeting publishers and agents and people that we might not necessarily have a chance to meet otherwise, and it's a fairly cheap for an entire weekend. It's like $50 kind of thing for an entire weekend. Cool. And it's great. And I've met great people there, and I've learned so much there. So I would say that's probably at least one of the best things that I've spent my money on. It's the first thing that came to my mind anyway.
John Haas, what did you do with the first money you ever made as an author?
I think I paid some bills with it.
That's super exciting.
The first thing I ever published, I won a contest in Money Sense magazine about how I got out of debt, and I sent that in, and I won, I believe, second place, which paid off pretty well. And then they, through phone calls, they improved my essay so that it was still mine, but not entirely mine. But the story was mine, but the words were not necessarily. So I took that money, and I'm sure I must have put it onto bills and car payment and all that fun stuff.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
All right. John Haas, what was an early experience where you learned that language could have power?
Oh, I like that. I like that question. It was back in high school. This would have been the first time I wrote something that other people got to see. Up to then, I just kept it to myself. And so my friend was in the drama classes, and she was saying, oh my God, we need to do this horror kind of skit for... Oh no, it was horror Halloween, because it was between the two holidays. So it needs to be a kind of a horror Halloween kind of thing. And I thought, okay, well, I'll do this up for you. So I wrote up this quick play, probably about 5 pages. I gave it to them. And then the drama teacher said, oh, bring him. I want to meet him, and I want him to see this skit put on. So I did, and I I got to see it put on, and I was sitting there in the audience thinking, that's my story up there being acted out. So the power of the words, it was actually on me, that I was like, wow, this is real. This is something I created. And then the power of, the teacher and the other students and everything saying, like, I like that one. That was a good one. That was a good story.
Good.
So, yeah.
In your experience, what are the most important magazines or, semi-regular publications or even mailing lists for writers to subscribe to?
Oh, way back in the beginning, or in the beginning when I was getting serious,
Not the beginning of time.
No. That's a different story.
Okay. Back when you're getting serious.
Back when I was getting serious, I subscribed to Writer's Digest magazine.
Oh, okay.
Which had a lot of good articles, and I didn't keep every issue, but I would keep particular articles from each magazine, and I'd put them into a binder of things that I was like, okay, this is relevant to me. This is something that I'm going to need to keep my eye on, kind of thing, while I'm writing. So that was one that hit me as being useful. I imagine there are other ones like it out there, but that was the one that I found first.
Writer's Digest is really popular. I'm actually reading a book that was published through them right now. I was interested in I'm not terribly interested in writing it, but I like knowing as much as I can about different genres. So it was a book on writing romance, actually, called Write Naked. But it was through Writer's Digest, and she was talking about in the foreword the publication a lot and what it meant to her and other writers and stuff like that. So I feel you with that answer, absolutely.
Very cool.
Yeah. This is a bit more esoteric. John Haas, how do you balance making demands of the reader with taking care of the reader?
Oh.
Yeah.
That is esoteric. Very nice.
So, there are authors that, there are authors that'll explain things to the reader, and that's kind of taking care of them. And then there are the authors that go, no, figure it out.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. I don't want to spell everything out to the person, to the reader. I want them to figure things out for themselves. Like my story in the Writers of the Future anthology. There's one particular point, and I won't say what it is in there, but there's a particular point in there that at the end of the story, you're like, was that what I think it was? But I never tell you. I let you figure it out for yourself. Yep. Now, the editor, David Farland, when he was working with me, he said, I think you should let the writer know, the reader know. And I thought about it for a while, and I came back to him and I said, I don't think so, and here's why. And he said, okay, it's your story, you backed it up, fine, let's go with it.
Yeah.
And he went with what I wanted originally, which was very cool.
That is cool. It's good when an editor can be reasonable like that.
Yeah. And he was great. He was a fantastic editor.
As a writer, what would you choose as your mascot or avatar, whatever you want to call it?
I love raccoons.
The cartoon?
I don't know why I know. Well, yeah, I kind of remember that cartoon.
That was a good cartoon. Anyway, yes, you like raccoons.
It's a piece of Canadian history there.
Yes.
Yes, I like raccoons. I find them cute and fun, and I know that they've probably all got rabies, but I find them adorable.
They are
I think
cute.
There's something about, yeah, and they've got those little thumbs, right? So they can actually pick things up, and do stuff, and I don't know.
No.
I always say I want a pet raccoon, but I'm not entirely sure that would be a good idea.
No, and I always wonder with an animal like a raccoon, like honestly, when you get feral cats or you get wild dogs, they behave pretty much the same way as raccoons. And I'm sitting there kind of scratching my head like, I wonder if they would be much nicer if we'd chosen to domesticate them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I wonder.
Although, I've been reading more and more that, apparently domestication was, they think now was on the part of the cats and dogs. Like, they chose us, not the other way around. And I'm like, yeah, that tracks. I can't get my cat to do anything, so why would I think I could have domesticated this small tiger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they just let us exist with them.
Well, to their, like, almost parasitic, like, to their benefit, you know what I mean? Like, I'll act cute for you, you feed me, and I don't have to hunt. Like, it's a good system.
Everybody agrees? Okay, this is what we're going to go with.
Yeah. What do you owe the real people upon whom you base your characters? That question kind of assumes that you base your characters on real people, but I believe from a previous interview that you do.
Some of them, definitely. There's always a little bit of me in one of the characters in my book, at least.
There's you in every character. You're the writer.
Yeah. So, like, write what you know, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, it's the thing of, like,
in there.
it's like the thing of, like, I do this experiment with young writers sometimes, where it's like, try to imagine something that a human couldn't imagine.
Right.
And you can't, because by definition, you've messed yourself up, you know?
Yeah, that's like the sound of one hand clapping.
Yeah. But yeah, so if you base characters on real people, what, if anything, do you feel like you owe them, or that you want to say to them?
Well, when it comes to the one that comes to my mind is the character Mike in The Reluctant Barbarian, who was based on my best friend growing up, Mike, and I was thinking of him when I was writing it. He was in my mind, and yes, I was like, yes, that's Mike. And then when I did the book launch, I turned around and there he was. And I was like, I based this character on you. As I think the first thing I said to him. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. And then he read the book and he was happy with it, which I was very glad about, because it could have gone badly. I mean, he wasn't an unflattering character, but I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. How many unpublished or half-finished books do you have?
Oh, let's see. I've got a horror novel, which is that one that I was talking about earlier, which was the first thing that I ever wrote. Instead of doing short stories, I went straight to doing this book. So that one is definitely unpublished, and deservedly so. I did a very short How to Get Out of Debt book after I was published in Money Sense magazine many years ago.
Interesting.
And that one never really went anywhere either.
Interesting.
Yeah. So 2.
Okay.
Two books and probably about 10 short stories, maybe 15 that are as yet unpublished.
John Haas, do you ever Google yourself?
Oh, it's been a while. I have Googled myself in the past, but more recently my 2 kids have Googled me. And they'll come home and they'll be like, hey, we Googled you today at school, and you're the number 1 John Haas author that pops up.
Yeah, of course. All right. Thanks very much for coming on the Right Project podcast again, John.
Oh, my pleasure. Oh, and that person's name I couldn't remember. It's Dylan Black.
Dylan Black. Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I will insert that in. Thank you again for coming on the Right Project podcast, and I hope everyone checks out The Reluctant Barbarian and its sequel, The Wayward Spider.
Please do.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on again. For all of you, we'll be here again next week at 4:30 Newfoundland time or online at chmr.ca. Please tune in and we'll talk more about writing culture in Newfoundland.